So this is going to be another movie review. This one's called MASH. 1970. Movie poster says MASH gives a damn. Giving it 2 out of 5 stars as expected. I just like this one. 1970 U.S. black comedy war film directed by Robert Altman. One Robert Altman film. The actors call him Bob. And that would be The Long Goodbye. I didn't like MASH. I loved The Long Goodbye. 3 years later. I hated Nashville. Timothy Brown is also in Nashville. He plays a small part in this one. I don't remember Popeye. And there's one other film that I really hated. I can't think of the name of it, though. Oh, God. I'm looking at his list of films right now, and I can't find it. It starts with an A. Yeah. It's not on here. Never mind. Anyways, getting back to MASH. It's written by Ring Lardner Jr., based on Richard Hooker's 1968 novel MASH, a novel about 3 Army doctors. The picture is the only theatrically released feature film in the MASH franchise, and it became one of the biggest films of the early 1970s for 20th Century Fox. They also did Tora, and Patton, I think. 2 other war films that were kind of pro-war compared to this one. The film depicts a unit of medical personnel stationed in Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, MASH, during the Korean War. No mention of Korea is made in this movie because they want to make it look like Vietnam War. Something you should be appalled at, with all the gore happening in the surgical suite. That's really the only reason to watch. There's some hints at nudity. I think you really have to be a professional pause button operator like Adrian to see any nudity in this one, which is a bummer. Fred the Hammer Williamson makes an early movie appearance here, and I don't know if it's his first one. Couldn't really figure it out, but might not be his first one. But it is his film debut. Professional football player Fred the Hammer Williamson. All right, I did figure it out. I just read it off of Wikipedia. So Fred the Hammer Williamson doesn't make an appearance until the last 25% of the movie, I think. It's just a big, long football game with all these pro football players pretending to play football in Korea. It stars Donald Sutherland, Tom Skerritt, and Elliot Gould, with Sally Kellerman, who plays Hot Lips. There was a different actress for the Hot Lips in the TV show. Robert Duvall, Renee Auberjonis, Gary Burghoff, who played Radar in both the movie and the television show. I think he was the only actor in the movie who made an appearance in the television show. Roger Bowen, Michael Murphy, and his film debut, professional football player Fred the Hammer Williamson. Although the Korean War is the film's storyline setting, the subtext is the Vietnam War, current event at the time the film was made. Yeah, it was the height of the Vietnam War, just like Johnny Got His Gun from 1970. Doonesbury creator Gary Trudeau, who saw the film in college, said MASH was perfect for the times. The cacophony of American culture was brilliantly reproduced on screen. I don't know about that. There's a rather shocking gay soldier who's married, and he's confused about his sexuality, so he decides to commit suicide. And they're like, okay, how do we help you commit suicide? It's like the doctors in this movie are a bunch of Jack Kevorkians, Dr. Death. It's very bizarre, and not in a good way. It's kind of offensive, if you ask me. But I'm, and I mean that with all sincerity too, because I'm not one who's easily offended. I'll watch Salo. Even Adrian won't watch Salo. So that's saying a lot. Anyways, the film won the Grand Prix du Festival International du Film, later named the Palme d'Or at the 1970 Cannes Film Festival. The film went on to receive 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and it won for Best Adapted Screenplay. In 1996, MASH was included in the annual selection of 25 motion pictures added to the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress, being deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and recommended for preservation. The Academy Film Archive preserved MASH in 2000. The film inspired the television series MASH, which ran from 1972 to 1983. Amazing, 11 years. I used to watch that show a lot when I was a kid. That one in Gilligan's Island. Gary Burghoff, who played Radar O'Reilly, was the only actor playing a major character who appeared in both the movie and the TV series. Altman despised the TV series, calling it the antithesis of what we were trying to do with the movie. I don't know. To me, the movie is just an R-rated version of the television show. I don't see the difference other than Robert Altman trying to insert his social commentary on things like religion and suicide. I guess he's trying to be realistic, because a lot of soldiers do commit suicide. It is an actual thing, but just the way he went about presenting it, like, oh, this is nothing. It's just some guy who wants to kill himself. No big deal. That kind of turned me off. I don't know. It seemed creepy to me. In 1951, the 4007th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital in South Korea is assigned 2 new surgeons, Hawkeye Pierce and Duke Forrest, who arrive in a stolen Army Jeep. They are insubordinate, womanizing, mischievous rule breakers, but they soon prove to be excellent combat surgeons. So, so their skills allow them to get away with all kinds of shenanigans, like playing golf in Korea, that kind of stuff. Other characters already stationed at the camp include bumbling commanding officer Henry Blake, his hyper-competent chief clerk, Radar O'Reilly, Dennis Walter, Painless Pole Wadowski. That's the guy who commits suicide. The incompetent and pompous surgeon Frank Burns, played by Robert Duvall, and the contemplative chaplain, Father Mulcahy. Sorry. So there's sort of mixed messages about religion in this one. When Robert Duvall is doing the Our Father prayer, Hawkeye and his other dude, Duke, they want to change tents, but when the army chaplain starts reciting prayer, they're like, "Oh, that guy's cool. We'll let him get away with it." So it's not consistent, this movie. The main characters in the camp divide into two factions, irritated by Frank's religious fervor. Hawkeye and Duke get Blake to move him to another tent, so newly arrived chest surgeon Trapper John McIntyre, played by Elliot Gould, who was also in The Last Goodbye 3 years later, can move in. So in the bonus features, Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould. Donald Sutherland plays Hawkeye Pierce. They both thought that the director was a total goofball. Like he was insane, out of his mind, Robert Altman. But on a budget of $3.025 million, it made a box office of $81.6 million. Incredible return on investment, this film, for 20th Century Fox. So the actors were wrong and the director was right. Although I don't think the film's popularity is justified. I say that a lot about lamestream films. All right. The three doctors, the Swamp Men, after the nickname for their tent, have little respect for military protocol, having been drafted in the army, and are prone to pranks, womanizing, and heavy drinking. That part is understandable, I think. A little bit more understandable than the suicidal, homosexual, confused sexuality guy. The dentist. Frank is a straight-laced military officer who wants everything done efficiently by the book, and as is Margaret Hotlips Houlihan, who has been assigned to the 477th as head nurse. The two bond over their respect for regulations, and they start a secret romance, even though Frank is married. With the help from Radar, the Swamp Men sneak a microphone into a tent where the couple are making love, and they broadcast their passion over the camp's PA system, embarrassing them badly and earning Margaret Houlihan the nickname Hot Lips. Next morning, Hawkeye goads Frank into assaulting him, resulting in the latter's removal from the camp for psychiatric evaluation. Later, when Hot Lips is showering, The swamp men prank her by pulling the tent sides off and exposing her naked body in order to settle a bet over whether or not she is natural blonde. I guess they want to look at her pubic hairs. I've seen some blondes with some pretty dark pubic hairs. But that's just me. I don't know about you. Furious and embarrassed, Hot Lips screams at Blake for letting his staff run wild, failing to discipline them. Painless, described as the best equipped dentist in the Army and the dental Don Juan of Detroit, becomes depressed over an incident of impotence and announces his intent to commit suicide, believing that he has turned homosexual. So he's not really homosexual, he's just impotent. And he thinks he might be a homosexual. The swamp men agreed to help him carry out the deed, staging a feast to evoke Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, arranging for Father Malcathy to give painless absolution and communion, providing him with a black capsule, actually sleeping pill, to speed him on his way. Hawkeye persuades the gorgeous Lieutenant Dish Snyder, who has remained faithful to her husband, is being transferred back to the United States for discharge, to spend the night with Painless and allay his concern about his latent homosexuality. The next morning, Painless is his usual cheerful self, and a smiling Dish leaves camp and helicopter to start her journey home. Okay, this is starting to make sense to me. This is the part that I missed somehow. Well, I'm reading it off of Wikipedia. I try not to miss anything in my videos by going through the plot, but there is no plot in this movie. Because I totally missed that the black pill was actually a sleeping pill and he came back to life. I didn't know that they were that the whole thing was like a show. It was like a fake suicide, I guess. I thought it was a real suicide. I didn't know what was going on. Trapper and Hawkeye are sent to Japan on temporary duty to operate on a congressman's son and hopefully play some golf. When they later perform an unauthorized operation on a local infant, they face disciplinary action from the hospital commander for misusing Army resources. Trapper uses anesthetic gas to sedate the commander, using staged photographs of him as he wakens in bed with a Japanese prostitute. They blackmail him into keeping his mouth shut. Following their return to camp, Blake and General Hammond organize a football game between the 4,077th and the 325th evac hospital, and they wager several $1,000s on its outcome. At Hawkeye's suggestion, Blake applies to have a specific neurosurgeon, Dr. Oliver Harmon Spearchucker Jones, played by the great Fred the Hammer Williamson, a former professional football player for the San Francisco 49ers. I thought he played for the Kansas City Chiefs. Transferred to the 477th as a ringer. I don't know what that sports phrase means. Something like a surprise halftime insertion. I guess that's what it means. Hawkeye also suggests that Blake bet half of his money up front, keep Jones out of the first half of the game. The 325th scores repeatedly and easily even after the 4077th drugs one of their star players to incapacitate him. Yeah, they stab him with the needle. Hammond confidentially offers high odds, against which Blake bets the rest of the money. Jones enters the second half, which quickly devolves into a free-for-all, and the 4077th gets the 325th second ringer thrown out of the game, and they win on a final trick play, which was kind of hard to believe. Unrealistic. All right. I don't want to spoil the ending. But, well, I'm up over 20 minutes already. I told you what was coming down the pike for next week. What I didn't tell you is that Netflix decided to send me Conan the Destroyer Arnold movie after all. So that may or may not get Karate Man's attention. He finally recommended 3 films to me. They look like kickboxing films, of course. Because the DVD covers look like kickboxing dudes. And so I removed some Jim Wynorski movies, and I added what was it? I don't even remember the names of the movies. There's 2, 3, and 4 that I added. I wouldn't go through my list because Adrian just added one. But I'm already up over 20 minutes, so I think I'll save that for my next review. How's that? Laters.